Hi, Amy. Thank you for meeting with me today. So I just have a few questions about panic attacks and your experience with panic attacks. So to begin, what do you feel a panic attack looks like to you?
It's very much like physical sensations. So it starts to sort of like manifest in like heart palpitations, so like increased heartbeat. Then I guess it like also there's just like loads of different things. Sometimes I just feel like I'm gonna die because like the palpitations get so extreme that I can't do anything else except focus on my heartbeat. It's just these really intense feelings of being overwhelmed and not being able to concentrate on anything else. And then as the sort of those feelings increase, it like becomes harder and harder to focus on anything until it gets to the point where I can't do anything. It's like it becomes like a complete paralysis, and maybe I'll start like hyperventilating. Maybe I will feel like I can't breathe properly. Those are the common ones. And then very often when I start feeling those really intense feelings, I'll just start vomiting.
So what do you feel tends to cause the panic attacks for you?
So very often it's a feeling that I don't have any control over what's happening. So a break in the routine, sort of like any kind of rupture to the everyday flow of my life. So as someone who like suffers from anxiety, I tend to have sort of like rituals in my day. I sort of like really rely on routine, and anything that kind of gets in the way of that or sort of disrupts that. Can lead to like me spiraling out of control for no reason. That sort of like overwhelming like feeling that I was describing before, that is very much connected to this feeling of like not not feeling like I have any control. So that's one thing, I guess. That's probably the thing that happens the most, let's say. But then there can be other things. There's triggers to like previous like traumatic events or whatever, that can happen anywhere and at any time.
What do you feel helps during a panic attack?
So it's taken a long time to get here, but one thing that does help a lot is like tuning into my external like surroundings and trying to focus on different textures, different colors, different sounds. So for example, if I'm in a tube or something and it's happening, pointing out all the different colors. So that woman's coat is yellow, that person's bag is blue, and just really trying to focus on physical sensations as well. Because in doing that, it kind of reminds me that I am not, it's not like a situation to be in like fight or flight mode. It's like I'm alive, I can do these things. I know that different things work for different people, so the breathing has never worked for me. That just makes my sort of like, it just makes me feel like I can't breathe. But definitely that. And then there's different things I can do to prevent it happening in the first place when I feel like it's happening. So if it is about these feelings of not being in control of my situation or whatever, there is very often, it helps to talk things out with someone about what's going on in my head. Sometimes it's because I haven't had enough time to really sit down and reflect on what's happening in my day or anything. So when it comes to the evening, journaling, writing things down, trying to sort of sift through those thoughts and figure out what it is that's happening. Because sometimes I can sort of like interject before it reaches a point, which I usually know is coming, by just thinking through what it is that's leading to that, and then kind of trying to fix it or address it before it becomes like an issue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Those are some really good techniques to help cope and obviously prevent the panic attacks happening. It sounds like you've got some really good ones there. I especially like the one of like the being on the tube and looking for things to distract your mind is really good. Yeah, so what do you think is the best thing that someone can say during a panic attack if you were with someone while you were having one?
I know as well this changes for different people, but me, for example, I think it really helps to understand what my body is going through. So when someone tells me like, okay, this is happening because, I don't know, this is a panic attack. Just even those words, for example, sort of like bring me down to earth, because it's like, okay, now I understand what my body's doing, if you know what I mean. But obviously not everyone understands what a panic attack is, and they can't really figure out what it is. So sometimes just being there and asking them if there's anything that they can do to help, if, I don't know, helping them through figuring out, for example, those different environmental stimuli. So being like, oh, like look at the color of that, or this or that, or sort of like helping them through those thoughts and just listening sometimes. I know that there's also like a lot of things that really don't help if that's helpful. So for example, just when people say like it's all in your head, or it's, do you know what I mean? Like those kind of words that sort of like invalidate what's happening to you, and those things are usually like worse, or stop stressing, because it's like, I wish I could. But definitely definitely just asking the person what you can do in that moment to make things as comfortable as possible. People will respond in different ways. Some people just want to sit in silence. Some people need to like really talk about what's going on in their heads, for example.
Yeah, definitely. I think it is really important to be empathetic, even if you don't experience panic attacks yourself. It can be really distressing for the other person. So I think it's definitely, what you said is completely right. Like you really should just like validate the person's distress. Yeah, and I definitely think it would be a good idea if people know someone who experiences a panic attack, to just sort of get to know what a panic attack is like for them. So then if they're ever with them when one comes about, they know exactly what that person needs in that moment. Because I definitely think that's good when someone experiences frequent panic attacks. Yeah, so do you have any advice for those who may be experiencing panic attacks?
Yeah, so one thing that really helped me was actually taking the plunge and finally going to seek professional help. Anxiety was something that I was suffering with for years and years, and I always felt like I probably didn't need it that much. But I think sort of like normalizing that therapy is okay at any level is probably a really good thing. So if you do feel like you have sort of like panic attacks or whatever, I really do think that going to seek professional help is probably a really good option for you. I also recommend having conversations with the people around you. I definitely think for me, it got easier when the people around me knew what I was going through, especially because very often the symptoms of anxiety, for example, things like dissociation and stuff, they can happen in a room when you're supposed to be socializing with other people, or sometimes like you just forget whole entire social events because you were sort of like in another place in your head, because those were times of extreme anxiety or whatever. So kind of helping the people around you understand your symptoms and what's going on with you is probably a really good way of helping you through those like really uncomfortable situations, because then it's just you're kind of like canceling out a whole other dimension of stress when it comes to it, like being fearful of having a panic attack when you're in someone's house, or this and that, when sometimes it's like gonna happen. So those are probably the two main things I would recommend, aside from the obvious tools and stuff that
Yeah,
we spoke before.
definitely. I wholeheartedly agree with that. 100%. Definitely, if you are experiencing frequent panic attacks, it's really good to get professional help. And I also 100% agree that speaking about it can make the problems less worse than it needs to be.